So it's expected that when they do loan it out, it shouldn't exceed 12, 13%. However, in the document for microfinance, the policy document, it clearly identifies what are MSMEs, so that the microfinance institutions are not loaning out funds to companies that don't qualify in that category. Just very quickly about what he'd said before, you'd asked my colleague earlier, so how come SMICE, that's the Equity Investment Fund that was set up 10% pre-tax? I think banks are really specialists with debt. There's two ways of financing an institution, debt or equity. Banks are specialists in debt. So what the CBN tried to do was to move them to equity. It's a different skill set. It's a long-term skill set. It's advisory. It's participation at a level that banks don't want to be involved in. So that was one of the reasons. So the CBN has to, let's move back to our focus, debt. Let's look at, because if you look at what the governor, Sanusi Lamido Sanusi, has been doing all through his tenure, his focus really has been financial inclusion, financial literacy, payment system restructuring, everything you look at. It's been how can we get more people into the financial system, individuals and businesses. So while the interest rates, yes, 21, 22% as the case may be, for the smaller businesses, MSMEs, is going to be much lower with this fund.
But at what point do we expect to see this beginning to happen?
Well, the fund was launched only this week.
Yes.
So I expect we're going to the third quarter now. I expect by the last quarter of this year, those funds will start being pushed out to the man on the street.
Okay. But Mr. Onyaso, there's also the issue of the term. Because right now, commercial banks are lending only short term. That is the reason why you can't buy houses and you can't, everything is cash, 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 cash. I mean, so how is this long-term part going to be achieved in an economy that only looks at loans on the short term?
All right, that's a really good question. The truth is that every bank determines how much risk it wants to carry. So the loan terms, say, a big Dangote would obtain are not the same loan terms an entertainer would obtain. So every bank ultimately, will determine how long, on a case-by-case basis, how long do we want to extend this facility to this particular business or individual? Because if the CBN goes into the business of micromanaging, you get to a point where it's leaving its position as setting the ground rules to now trying to, sub-manage, micromanage these institutions. And I'm not sure that's the proper role of the CBN.
Yeah. So are you convinced that the microfinance banks, which you say are the ones actually going to run this thing, are they going to be able to give long-term loans? Because of the environment in which they're operating.
The conditions are stated in the scheme. Like he said, the money will be
on lent
to the microfinance institutions at 9%.
Yes.
They are to add 6% to such
that
fund.
Takes it to 15%.
15%.
Okay.
And the market rate is, like he said, is
21, 22.
I mean, in some cases,
so
for and
banks, again,
40%.
Again, there is interest drawback. Any institution that repays its loan will get 40% drawback.
Absolutely.
That is also to encourage them. And they have 3 years tenure to pay. And 60% of the money available goes to women. You should be happy. Of that.
Sorry, say that again. They have 3 years.
3 years tenure.
Repayment.
Yeah.
That is still short term.
No, the funds in the market. We are in Nigeria. Let's accept that funds in the market are short term. You don't take short and lend long. 3 years for somebody. 3 years for somebody like the current microfinance banks lend to the trader for a week.
That really is the goal. And
they
are content. They are content with a week. They are content with a month.
Moon Law. There's a product called Moon Law. Moon Law, she wants to go to the market
to buy money
to buy. She just needs 50,000.
Dawn market.
Yeah, she goes to a microfinance bank, borrows the 50,000. In 1 week, she returns the money.
By Friday, it's paid.
By Friday, it's paid.
They're not asking for 1 million, 50,000, 100,000, 25,000.
No, and it's categorized. There are three categories of micro, small, and medium enterprises, depending on the capital asset and your employment. If it is employment under 10 people, you are micro.
Okay.
So if it is above 200, you are medium. So, and the money will be given to you based on that. There are conditions, there are guidelines. And if indeed they follow this guideline, you see what is happening, the deposit money banks are not giving money to these micro development banks. Is to make funds available to them for on lending to
The lower,
the poor and vulnerable people.
the low value customers.
Low value customers. And unless we increase the population of these low value lenders, like I said, this country will not develop. And it's seed money. CBN wants to see how this initial fund works. And it has a supervisory and regulatory framework which will allow you to monitor how
on an ongoing basis.
Some people in Nigeria are quite cynical and skeptical of initiatives of this sort. If you were to look back,
not when CBN floats it.
Give me an example of the one that CBN has floated as a scheme that has worked excellently well.
Commercial Agriculture Credit Scheme,
Yeah.
the Fund for Restructuring and Refinancing of Manufacturing. Those were also wholesale funds made available to the private sector.
So how has, let's take agriculture for example, how many people can we say, unfortunately CBN does not often come out and let us know this is the level of success, and they should be out singing their own praises for the things that they've done well, but let's look at...
By the way, now that
Yes.
you mentioned that, we're actually expecting the Director Development Finance of the CBN to join us before the end of this segment.
Okay.
No, I will tell you this. The Agri Credit Guarantee Scheme worked very well. As a matter of fact, CBN was given awards to banks that did very well in that scheme. And there were 2-3 banks that stood out in giving people, many people benefited from the Agri Credit. You give loan to a farmer, and if the farmer doesn't pay, because the loan is guaranteed, CBN pays. And that gives the bank the assurance, to want to give such loans.
Because either way, they're not going to lose any
even
money.
in this scheme, there's a guarantee scheme. There's a guarantee element in it too. All this to encourage institutions. So if government was doing it, government gives people the money and turns its back, and is seen as national cake.
Yes.
But CBN gives it with guidelines, and
Through
CBN
the
is not
banks.
going directly
Through the
To
banks.
the individual.
to the individual. CBN is giving it to institutions, microfinance institutions to manage with guidelines. And their problem was assessing funds. And the deposit money banks are not ready to give microfinance banks funds to run the scheme.
Too small.
Now, when you
And they may not get
said
it
last
back.
year, for the statistic you asked for, I know last year, for the latest figures last year, about 32,000 new jobs were created from the Commercial Agriculture Credit Scheme, CACS. I know that at June this year, the fund had been fully disbursed. Tens of thousands of new jobs had been created.
Tens of thousands.
Tens
No,
of
no,
thousands,
let me
yes.
say this. You can't stay in Lagos and feel the impact.
Tens of thousands.
You go to the rural areas, you will see the impact of some of these schemes.
In both agricultural MSMEs and non-farm MSMEs, tens of thousands of jobs have been created. As a last year, just basic, MSMEs were contributing I think about 47% of nominal GDP.
Sorry, I'm not telling you
if I
about...
may very quickly say this, we've got a caller on the line. Adidai is calling from London. Adidai, good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Okay, please go ahead, make your point or ask your question.
Yeah, I just want to contribute that it's going to be very, very difficult in Nigeria for a bank to lend people long time. And the reason being that there's no job creation in Nigeria. If I'm employed now and I can lose my job following this, that is one reason that banks will not lend people long time. And secondly,